wonder, come inside. Oh, come inside. Oh. The finest gems, each one a star, from places distant and lands afar. Shapes that shimmer, hues that play. This is your chance, it's Gem Drop Day. And see the light in every stone, crafted by hands, each one alone. A fleeting glimpse, don't let it fade. Gems like these are never remade. On the More Gems Show, where treasures shine. Where treasures shine. A moment of beauty, spark divine. Spark divine. Cut to perfection, glowing with pride. Step into the wonder, come inside. Go, come inside, go. It's the More Gem Show, a dazzling view where every gemstone waits for you. Welcome to the More Gem Show. Let's go.
What am I supposed to start with?
I don't know, you're live right
I'm
now.
live. Oh, okay. Hi, I'm Steve Moriarty from MoreGems.com, and today we're going to show you me cutting this. Oh, it's a kind of a peachy pink tourmaline. Is that a good place to show it, Mike?
Yeah.
You can see it?
Yeah, right there.
Yeah. So this comes from the Congo. It's a natural color, and it's pretty much shaped to cut an emerald cut. So we're going to do a brilliant style emerald cut. It's a style I've been cutting for, at least a couple of months now. Go get it in the machine.
Hey, Steve, I'm going to jump in here. What's up, everybody? We're kind of doing a little test here for our upcoming live streaming gem show. So typically we're only on YouTube, but now we're testing it across platforms. So we thought we'd just show Steve doing some cutting. So thanks for joining us for this test. And yeah, if you have any questions, leave them in the chat. I'll try and follow up. But right now I'm just kind of testing everything out. Go ahead.
Okay. So here's our stone. I'm going to start out by cutting the girdle. I have a bit of an inclusion here in one end I've got to get rid of. I'm using a 1200 grit diamond lap. These grits are just like sandpaper, so this is like 1200 sandpaper, which we don't use often. The auto industry uses 1200, 2000. So this does a nice fine cut, but cuts fairly quickly. I'm preformed, so I don't have to cut a lot of material away. So we're going to set can you see the index?
Not really.
Try not. So I have a digital index, and I'm going to set it to 90 degrees, which is where we cut our girdle. Turn the water on, washes off the swarf or fine gem material, and keeps the stone cool. So this particular material that comes from the DRC, the Democratic Republic of Congo, has been available probably the last 7-8 years. But currently there's little production because of all the problems that are going on in the Congo. You know, they're kind of warring, so there's not much mining going on. This is material I bought a year ago. And the nice thing about this material that comes from the Congo is most of its natural color, whereas probably a high percentage of the tourmalines on the market are heated, and they're heated to lighten the color. You take a dark green tourmaline and heat it up to maybe 700-800 degrees Fahrenheit, and it will lighten the color. Heating is very common in the industry. Probably 70% of the gems on the market are heated, including sapphires, rubies, tourmalines. Typically, no garnets are heated. Aquamarines are often heated. And typically, the value of a heated gem over an unheated gem is less. So there is a value to unheated if you can identify some stones like tanzanites. It's not easy to identify whether they're heated or not. So there's not as much of a variance in the pricing. So right now I'm just trying to get the girdle outline of this stone. It's typically what I do first on everything I cut. Create the girdle and then figure out what to do with the pavilion of the stone after you have the outline shaped. So this stone is much closer to square than I thought it was, which is going to kind of change how I cut the stone. I was fully planned out on what I was going to do, and now I've got to rethink it, which is the way of this business. You start cutting the stone, you run into an inclusion, and it causes you to change totally what you planned on doing. So it's something we deal with often. So now I'm going to cut the corners in. The corners are usually cut in so you have a place to put prongs on a gemstone so you don't chip it and you don't try and set on a real sharp edged corner. And of course there's an inclusion in the corner I have to deal with, so I've got to cut it deeper so the corners will be a little bigger than the plan. So that's fine, it'll add to the brilliance. got the inclusion cut out of one, so I just have to go around and cut the other 4 corners just to the same depth. Alright, so this is my preform. Huh?
They wanted to see, I don't know whether I can get it to move down anymore. They want to see the grinding on this. Here, show me your, still, that's where you're at right now?
Yeah. You want to move over just half the lap?
No, you're good. Trapped.
Oh. You're good?
You're good.
Alright.
I think they can see it now. It's hard to see with the text on these vertical ones, but
Okay, so now I gotta figure out what type of square I'm gonna cut. And one thing I know, I can put the culet in. That'll help me determine whether I do a step cut, a brilliant cut, depending on the depth.
hey chat, and everybody watching, does anybody know how to, on the vertical screen, remove the text? Just curious, otherwise I'll look it up, but if anybody's out there that
tourmaline, I
knows.
typically cut the culet at 41 degrees, which is generally the minimum culet angle I use to cut all the gems. Tourmaline, somewhere 41, 42 degrees. Things like, well, if you fasten opal or you do quartz were typically 43 degrees or 44. Opal would be 44 or 45 degrees. And this, what determines that is the refractive index of the gem. So the higher the refractive index, the lower angle you can cut a gem at. When you have stuff like blue zircon, you could go down to 40 degrees, maybe 39 degrees, and still get a brilliant gem. But typically I'll still cut the blue zircon at 41 degrees for the pavilion angle. The pavilion being the bottom half of the stone. So right now I'm just trying to get to a culet. I set my angle at 41 degrees and cut back and forth the opposite sides. Cut them to 41, and if I haven't closed the culet, I'll lower the mast and cut again back to 41. So I've cut the 41, I'll go to the opposite side, cut that to 41.
Hey, what's up, Jeremy? Steve, Jeremy's out there. He said he's gonna come and see you in the shop tomorrow. You remember Jeremy? Cutter?
Oh, yeah.
He's gonna come see you tomorrow, he said.
Okay. So I'm to 41 degrees and I still haven't closed up the coolant. Can you see them there?
Yeah, go ahead and look at it like you're cutting. Go ahead.
Like I'm cutting?
Yeah, like you're gonna look at it.
Oh,
Do it naturally.
okay. Good? Yeah, you're good. Okay. So I still have to lower the angle a little more. I didn't lower the angle, I lowered the mass. I'm still cutting to 41 degrees.
Steve, someone wants to know, in your opinion, how difficult is emerald to cut because it's got so many inclusions?
Emerald,
Yeah.
it's very difficult because you have to determine how much inclusions you're going to leave, which is not something I normally like to do. I like to cut clean gems, but emerald you have to decide what inclusions you can leave, what you're going to accept in the stone, and how much are they going to affect the brilliance of the stone. I have a nice big piece of emerald to cut, and it's been in my box for at least 5 years. That's something I really like to cut. So I'm close to a coolant, so I'm going to go ahead and cut the two other sides to the same angle.
Steve, someone on YouTube wants to know what the machine you're cutting on is, and is it a 96 index? What machine are you cutting on, and is it a 96 index?
Yeah, this is the Ultratech V5, and I am cutting with the 96 index. 96 index is what I use probably 99% of the time. You can almost cut any shape with a 96 index. There are, if you're cutting by design, you'll find that there are a lot of designs, like for pear shapes, that have a 64 index. So if you're going to cut by design, you really need to have a variety of indexes. If you're cutting to your own design, you can use a 96 index for most things. The Ultratech V5 is a machine that I do recommend for those of you who might want to be cutters. Just because it is accurate and it's a company that's going to be around when you need help. I have a basement full of different machines that over my 40 years of cutting, you have a problem with a machine, then you find out that the company's gone out of business, so So there's nobody there to help you with parts or service. Unlike Ultratech, who's been around for pushing 60 years, and they don't rely on fastening equipment as their only business. And that's been the problem with all the other machines I have. Fastening equipment is a limited amount of machines that are purchased, and you really can't rely on a complete business just on fastening machines. So Ultratech builds a lot of high-tech equipment for other industries, so they're going to be around when you do need a new part. So I've almost closed up the queue. I'm a little short. Is that something you can see, Mike?
Go back where you were. See that?
So I see a question, which facet design am I following? I haven't even decided on what facet design I'm going to do. So I'm not following any design. It's going to be coming probably out of my head, which is how I cut most of the gems I do. I do use facet designs from a book occasionally, but typically I create my own. It gets you better yields. So now is pretty much the point I have to decide whether I'm going to cut a brilliant style or step cut. You know, we do a lot of step cuts because they do produce pretty remarkable brilliance, and you get better yields from step cuts. Brilliant styles, a little more brilliance, kind of a different look than a step cut. But when you have extra depth, a step cut will of course get you better yield. But when you're a little bit shallow and you don't have extra depth, a brilliant style will cut a shallower gem. So it's all about making best use of what material you have based on just what the depth of the gem is.
And Steve, someone from Instagram, they want to know whether you do, if someone gave you a piece of rough, would you cut them a gem out of their piece of rough?
No, I don't cut for anybody else. I have so much of my own to cut, and much more profitable cutting your own material than cutting for others. So, all a time issue. I've got a little bit of girdle issue. I've got to go back and cut the girdle again, figure out what my current problem is. Go back to 90 degrees. Just cutting the tulip, the girdle's just not cutting straight, so one of the sides hasn't been cut deep enough.
Steve, what type of tourmaline you cutting? Where's it from? And
This is Congo tourmaline from the Democratic Republic of Congo.
and electric crystals. Yes, I am using OBS for this. I've got two different instances running, which that's what we're testing out today, because I've got the vertical feed going across a few different social platforms, and then the horizontal as well on YouTube. So we're just trying to broaden the audience a little bit and testing that out today with this live cutting stream.
So I'll go back and straighten out the girdle, which I did have one side wasn't cut totally equivalent depth to the others. So hopefully now everything will line up. Alright, because I have plenty of depth, I'm going to do a step cut, but I'm not going to cut it totally square. I'm going to put two facets on each side, which is a cut I've been doing lately that I like a lot. It produces a little more brilliance than a straight step cut. So I'm going to go back 90 degrees and put two facets on each side of this tourmaline. You know, and one thing for you cutters out there, something that I've experienced quite a few times, when you're cutting the tulip of a gem, you know, make sure you cut all the way to a point. You know, sometimes we think we've cut far enough, you know, and we're going to polish that little bit extra extra that we didn't cut direct to a point, but you find that it takes a lot to polish. It's just something I've experienced many times, thinking I've gone far enough, and now I just always make sure that when I'm cutting an inclusion out or cutting a little chip out, no matter what facet it is, make sure you cut it all the way out. Don't expect to polish it out. So I'm just going to go one to either side. There's 4 sides to this stone currently. I'm going to make it 8-sided. So instead of cutting on the 48, 96, 72, and 24, which are the 4 flat sides of a square on the 96 index, I'm going to do 1 index to either side, just to create a little more life in a step cut. This particular cut, often I'll go 2 indexes to either side, which I'm going to do 1 to start with. See if I go to 2. I think 2 will produce a little more life. The further the facets are away from each other, as far as the angle being further apart, I think the more brilliance you get. It's just going to determine whether I really have enough material to go 2 indexes and still have corner facets left on this. The more, if I go to 2 to either side, I may get more brilliance, but I lose more material. Whoops. Almost got the wrong facet. Okay, I'm going to go with that, 1 to either side. And Michael, you can see that on my screen. I can't. It's off the screen. Quite a lag.
Steve, someone from, looks like YouTube wants to know, do you ever use a jam peg machine?
I I've never used a jam pick machine.
Never used one.
I've used some pretty crappy machines, but never a jam pig, and it'd be fun. I'm sure it's a learning curve, but it's doing the same thing, just a little more rudimentary. You know, you have holes that you know the angle that line of holes will produce, and you have to rotate it yourself. I'm amazed at the talent of the people that use it, but in general, not something I really want to make as my way of cutting gems. And I think most of the people that use those overseas are starting to change to this style of equipment. You can do a lot more types of cuts, and it's just more accurate.
Steve, we got another question coming in from, looks like YouTube. So, Evil Lenny, he says he hates his job. He wants to know how to start cutting stones. He's got a master's in sculpture and taught jewelry making before.
Well, you buy a machine and you go online and you watch all the videos we put out there teaching gem cutting. If you can find somebody to teach you, literally teach you in a class, it's great, but you know, the videos we produced that are online, I wish I had when I learned, because we go pretty much in depth on how to cut stones, and I think you can learn just by watching our videos online.
Blake wants to know, do you always cut the crown first?
I never cut crown first. Cue it first, crown last. I once cut 2 crowns in a stone. I don't know how I did that. Why I started with a crown, and for some reason I started cutting a crown first, and then I left it for a while, came back to it, and because I never cut crown first, I went ahead and cut the other side and cut another crown. So it was a double crown stone. So I haven't cut a crown first since then. And the most important side of the gem is the pavilion. It's really what produces the most brilliance. You can do a lot of angle changes in a crown, and you always affect the brilliance some, but you can change the angle of a crown dramatically and still have a very brilliant stone. But if you don't cut the pavilion deep enough, which when you cut a crown first, sometimes you're stuck with not enough material that you can put the right cue-it angle in. So I think you're always better off cutting cue-it first. Cue-it's what creates the reflection that goes in with the crown. The crown is used to split the reflections that the cue-it makes. So I'm currently cutting the 2 cue-it angles. You know, I cut one before, but I decided to do a step cut and do a split facet, 2 facets on either side. So I'm just putting the 2 facets that create the cue-it in. so I've got that cut. Now this 1200 steel lap is good for cutting material a little quicker. You know, if this were a bigger stone, I'd probably use a 600 lap. But for this small stone, I start with a 1200 metal lap. And the pre-polish I use this 600, which doesn't seem to make sense. But this particular 600 lightning lap really produces a polish more like an 1800, a pre-polish. So this will be my pre-polish, and I go to it as quick as I can, just to cut out the number of steps. So hopefully I can get the other. I'm going to put 2 more rows in this pavilion of this stone. I cut the first one at 41 degrees, then I'll cut probably at 48 for the second row, and 55 for the girdle row, the row closest to the girdle. So I'm going to recut what I just did, and I don't know if we can see this, what the finish looks like with the 1200. Now I have found that if I were cutting a 2-carat stone, I could polish direct from that 1200 lap, which I just did today on a couple of 1.5 carat tanzanites. I cut it with the 1200, went direct to polish with 50,000, and it was just very easy. I see people going from 600 to 1200 to 1800 to 3000, then the polish, and I just don't get it. You know, big stones, you know, a big topaz, I don't know, what was the biggest topaz? We cut a 200 carat. You know, that needs more steps. And I probably did 3 steps before my polish on that stone, just because it's hard and it's pretty, and the facets were big. But otherwise, I do the minimal amount of faceting before polishing that I can. We'll see if this will work for this. Lightning Lap does not recommend using their laps as heavy laps, but I do. You know, I push these laps pretty hard, but this lap I probably cut 100 stones on it, and they're relatively inexpensive. This is probably $50 lap. This is a topper. The solid laps are more expensive, well over $100. I think about going to sintered laps that a lot of people use and swear by them. They're expensive. They're $500-600, and occasionally you have to refinish them, and I just don't understand why. I'm cutting this tourmaline from the Democratic Republic of Congo. It is probably my favorite color in gems, kind of peachy, pinkish orange. This one's on the light side of what my ideal stone this color is, but I'm sure it's just going to be a beauty. So that's my culet row. Now I'm going to cut, I have 2 more rows I'm going to do in this step cut. The next row would be 48. Then the row near the girdle will be 55 degrees. So I'm going to go right to the 55 degree and just cut it halfway up to the girdle. And then I'll put the middle row in at 48 degrees after that. This will be where I find out whether I should have stuck with the 1200 lap and cut quicker, or if this will go fast enough that I can deal with just one step before polish. Huh? Whatever you want.
Yeah, I gotta fix a few things.
Okay. All right, we will do this again. This is just kind of a help for Michael to make sure that we're ready for our gem show, which is coming up on the 6th of August. The More Gem show is something we do monthly, typically, and we'll be revealing this stone and probably another 20 stones that I've cut during the month. So join us then, 7:05 p.m. on YouTube. It's the More Gem show. Thanks for watching.
Let's go, like the stage is set. Rare gemstones you won't forget.